I'm standing in front of a judge, holding a folder that's about to send someone to prison. Inside, bank statements showing $400,000 stolen from our community. The man who took it. Someone we all trusted. Someone who had the keys to everything. But let me take you back to where this nightmare began. My name is Karen, and I've been the president of Maplewood Heights Homeowners Association for 6 years. I never imagined that title would turn me into an amateur detective, but here we are. It was a Tuesday evening, our monthly board meeting. 5 of us sat around the worn oak table in the community center. Me, our vice president Tom, secretary Linda, and 2 board members, Margaret and Steve, and of course, Richard. Richard Chun had been our treasurer for 8 years. 8 years of handling every dollar that came in and went out of our community of 230 homes. 8 years of trust. The financial report looks solid, Richard said, sliding papers across the table. His smile was practiced, comfortable. We're sitting at a balance of $87,300. Pool maintenance is on budget, landscaping is under budget, and we've even got enough for those new playground upgrades everyone's been asking about. I should have been relieved. Instead, something felt wrong. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was the way Richard's eye twitched when he mentioned the balance. Or maybe it was something I'd noticed 3 weeks earlier that I couldn't quite shake. "Richa," I said, leaning forward. "Can I see the actual bank statements? Not just the summary?" The room went quiet. Richard's smile flickered, just for a second. "Of course, I'll email them to you tonight. I'd prefer to see them now." I brought my laptop. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Linda looked confused. Richard's jaw tightened. "Karen, I don't carry bank statements to meetings," he said, his voice developing an edge. "That would be a security risk. Personal information. Account numbers." "You just said everything's fine," I interrupted. "So there's nothing to hide, right?" Richard's face reddened. "I don't appreciate the implication. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking to see documentation that, as HOA president, I have every right to review." The tension in that room could have been cut with a knife. Margaret broke the silence. "Richard, why don't you just pull them up on your phone? You have the banking app, don't you? Check." Richard's fingers drummed on the table. "Fine. Give me a moment." He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. I saw numbers. Dates. Transactions. Everything moved too fast. "Slower," I said. "I want to actually read this." "Karen, we have other agenda items. This is more important." I stood up and walked around the table. Richard reluctantly handed me his phone. I started scrolling through the transactions. Deposits looked normal. HOA fees coming in like clockwork. Then I got to the withdrawals. "What's this one?" I pointed to a payment of $12,800, dated February 5th. "Pay is MH Grounds Maintenance." "That's our landscaping company," Richard said quickly. "Our landscaping company is called Greenscape Services, and we pay them $4,500 a month, not $12,000. Richard snatched his phone back. "You're misreading it. That was a quarterly payment that included winter tree trimming, spring preparation, and show me the contract." "What? Show me the contract with this MH Grounds Maintenance Company. If we're paying them that kind of money, there must be a service agreement." "It's in my files at home." "Then we'll table the financial report until our next meeting," I said firmly. "You can bring all the supporting documentation then." The meeting ended awkwardly. Everyone filed out except Tom, who hung back. "Karen, what's going on?" he asked quietly. "You really think Richard's doing something wrong?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled out my own phone and opened a photo I'd taken 3 weeks earlier. "Remember that Saturday when we met here to discuss the pool renovation bids?" I asked. "Yeah." Richard was running late. While we waited, I went to the bathroom. On my way back, I passed his car in the parking lot. His door was open. He'd gone back to grab something. I saw mail on his passenger seat. I showed Tom the photo. "Look at the return address." Tom squinted. "Cayman Islands Financial Services." Exactly. Why would our HOA treasurer, who makes about $60,000 a year at his day job, have mail from an offshore bank? Tom's eyes widened. "You think he's hiding money?" "I think something's very wrong, and I think that MH Grounds maintenance charge is just the beginning." I couldn't sleep. At 11:30 p.m., I was still at my desk, going through every financial report Richard had submitted for the past 3 years. My husband, Mark, poked his head in. "Still at it. Something's wrong with the numbers. Mark, I can feel it. You want me to take a look? You know I'm terrible at math. But no, it's not that they're wrong. They're too perfect. Every month, Richard reports expenses that come in exactly on budget or slightly under. The balance grows at a predictable rate. There are never any surprises. Never any discrepancies. Isn't that good? No HOA runs that smoothly. There are always unexpected expenses, emergency repairs, budget overruns. Something. I pulled up our landscaping invoices. Look at this. January, $4,500. February, $4,500. March, $4,500. Every single month. The exact same amount. Maybe they have a fixed-rate contract. That's what I thought. So I called Greenscape Services today. Mark sat down. They confirmed they've been our landscaping company for 4 years. But they said their monthly rate is $3,500, not $4,500, and they have no idea what MH grounds maintenance is. The implication hung in the air. Karen, if what you're thinking is true, then Richard has been stealing $1,000 a month just from fake landscaping charges. For how long? And how much more? I opened a spreadsheet and started calculating. $1,000 a month for 8 years, $96,000. Just from that one fake vendor. But I'd seen that $12,000 charge too, and if there was one, there were probably others. I need to see the actual bank statements, I said. Not Richard's summaries. The real ones. How are you going to do that? Good question. I called an emergency board meeting. Well, not exactly. I invited everyone except Richard. This is highly irregular, Margaret said when she arrived and noticed Richard's absence. Why isn't our treasurer here? Because we need to discuss our treasurer, I said seriously. I laid out everything. The suspicious transactions, the fake vendor, the offshore bank mail, the too perfect financial reports. Linda's hand flew to her mouth. You think Richard is stealing from us? I think we need to verify independently. According to our bylaws, as board members, we have the authority to request bank statements directly from the institution. We don't need to go through the treasurer. But that means we don't trust him, Steve said. Right now, I don't. And I need you all to help me verify whether my suspicions are correct or if I'm way off base. Tom nodded slowly. What do you need? I need majority board approval to request full bank statements for the past 5 years. Everything, every account, every transaction. The vote was 4-1. Margaret abstained, clearly uncomfortable with what felt like an accusation against a colleague. 2 days later, a thick envelope arrived at my house. Inside were 5 years of bank statements for Maplewood Heights, HOA. My hands shook as I opened them. Papers covered every surface. Mark helped me organize them chronologically. Statement after statement. Page after page. Karen, Mark said quietly. He was holding a statement from 2 years ago. Look at this. I took the paper. There it was. A withdrawal of $15,000 to something called MH Emergency Repairs, LLC. I grabbed another statement, $23,000 to MH Security Services. Another $18,000 to MH Consulting Group. MHA whispered, Maplewood Heights. He's not even being creative. He's making up fake companies with our community's initials. We worked through the night. By dawn, we had a list of 47 suspicious transactions over 5 years. The total, $387,000. $387,000 stolen from our community. From our neighbors, from people who trusted Richard to safeguard their money. I felt sick, but I also felt angry. Determined. We need to call the police, Mark said. Not JIT. Not JIT. I need to be absolutely certain. If I accuse him and I'm wrong. Karen, you have 47 fake transactions, adding up to nearly $400,000. How much more certain do you need to be? He was right, but something made me hesitate. Let me verify the vendors first. I want to call every single one of these companies and confirm they don't exist or they never worked for. USI played detective. I called MH Emergency Repairs. Disconnected number. Primera se ha reached for MH Security Services. No business license, no website, nothing. I even drove to the address listed for MH Consulting Group. It was an empty lot. Every single vendor was fake. But I found something else. Something that made everything click into place. I was searching property records online when I found it a second. Purchased by Richard Chun 3 years ago. In the Cayman Islands, purchase price, $450,000, paid in cash. My hands clenched into fists. That house was built with our money. Every shingle, every window, every doorknob paid for by 230 families who trusted this man. I called Tom immediately. I have everything we need, I told him. Documentation, proof, all of it. What do we do now? Now we confront him. Tomorrow's our regular board meeting. He'll be there expecting business as usual. Karen, maybe we should just go straight to the police. I want to look him in the eye. I want him to know that we know that his lies are over. The next evening, everyone gathered as usual. Richard walked in with his typical confident smile, carrying his laptop and a folder. Evening, everyone, he said cheerfully. I've got great news about our reserve fund projections. Sit down, Richard. My voice was ice. His smile faltered. Excuse me. I said sit down. We need to talk about something. The room's energy shifted. Richard glanced at the other board members. Tom wouldn't meet his eyes. Linda looked pale. Margaret stared at her hands. Slowly, Richard took his seat. What's this about? I placed a folder on the table. This is about $387,000. The color drained from Richard's face. This is about fake companies, fake expenses. I opened the folder, spreading bank statements across the table. TCs about MH Emergency Repairs, MH Security Services, MH Grounds Maintenance, and 44 other companies that don't exist. Richard's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. This is about a house in the Cayman Islands purchased with cash. $450,000, money that should have been used for our community. Karen, I can explain really. Please do. Explain to all of us how you've been stealing from your neighbors for 5 years. Explain how you sleep at night, knowing you took money meant for our children's playground, our seniors' safety improvements, our community's future. Richard stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. These are wild accusations without proof. I pulled out another document. Here's the deed to your Cayman property. Here's the wire transfer from an account at Cayman Islands Financial Services, the same bank that sent you mail. By the way, here's a record of every fake company you created. Here are 5 years of bank statements showing every fraudulent withdrawal. I stood up, meeting his eyes. And here's what's going to happen next. You're going to resign immediately. You're going to arrange to repay every cent you stole. And if you don't, you'll what? Richard's face was red now. Angry. Sue me. Good luck. That money's offshore. Untouchable. Tom stood up. Then we go to the police. This is embezzlement. Fraud. Wire fraud. Since you used electronic transfers, those are federal crimes. Richard? Richard looked around the room. No one was on his side. No allies. No escape. You have 24 hours to make this right, I said quietly. After that, I'm filing a police report with all of this evidence. Richard grabbed his laptop, his hands shaking. You're making a huge mistake. No, I said. You made the mistake. We trusted you. He stormed out, leaving the folder, the statements, everything behind. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Linda burst into tears. How could he do this to us? Because he thought he could get away with it, I said. Because he thought no one would notice. No one would care enough to dig deeper. What happens now? Steve asked. I gathered the papers, organizing them carefully. Now we wait to see if he does the right thing. And if he doesn't, I looked at each of them. Then we make sure justice is served. 24 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number, Karen? The voice was Richard's, but it sounded different. Desperate. We need to talk. There's something you don't know. Something that makes this much worse than you think. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? The money. It's not just from the HOA. There are other communities, other accounts, and some very dangerous people are involved. If you go to the police, you're not just exposing me. You're putting yourself in danger. The line went dead. I stood there, phoning and realizing this was bigger than I'd imagined. Much bigger, and much more dangerous. Should Karen go to the police anyway? Or is Richard telling the truth about the danger? What would you do in this situation? Richard's warning echoed all night. Dangerous people. Was he lying? Or had I stumbled into something worse? I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., Mark found me in the kitchen. "You didn't come to bed," he said quietly. "I can't stop thinking about Richard's warning. What if dangerous people really are involved?" Mark took my hand. "That's what he wants. He wants you scared. Go to the police." He was right, but fear had its claws in me. At 8:30 a.m., I walked into Maplewood Police Department with my evidence box. "I need to report embezzlement. $400,000. 20 minutes later, I sat across from Detective Sarah Martinez. "Walk me through everything," she said. I showed her bank statements, fake companies, property records, offshore accounts, everything. "This is extensive work. How long did this take?" 2 weeks intensive investigation. "You confronted the suspect yesterday." "He ran. Last night he called. Said dangerous people were involved." Detective Martinez leaned forward. "Did he specify who?" "No. We're opening a formal investigation. I need copies of everything. And Karen, be careful. Vary your routines. Lock your doors. Anything suspicious? Call me." The reality hit me. This might actually be dangerous. Seen driving home, Tom called. "Richard showed up at my office. Wants to meet the board. Says he has information. He's trying to intimidate us." "Maybe. But he seemed scared." "Karen. Really scared. I'll be there. Call everyone. I want witnesses." All 5 board members assembled. Richard looked nothing like the confident treasurer before. Wrinkled shirt. Uncombed hair. Dark circles. "Thank you for coming," he began hoarsely. "We came for information." "Talk. I'm telling you everything. 5 years ago, I borrowed $5,000 from HOA funds. Financial problems. Planned to repay it. But you didn't." "No. Someone contacted me that week. Someone who knew." Silence. "His name is Victor Reese. Runs a money laundering network. He'd been watching our HOA. He knew I'd taken money." Margaret gasped. "He was watching us. He watches lots of HOAs, looking for weak points. He gave me a choice. Work with him or face exposure. So you stole more," Tom said. "He made it simple. Fake invoices. Shell companies. He takes 70%. I keep 30. $400,000 isn't simple." Victor got greedy, kept pushing for more. I tried stopping, but he paused. I liked the money. The Cayman house was his idea, but most of that $400,000 went to Victor. I only kept $90,000. Where's the money? Gun moved through endless accounts. Why tell us now? Because Karen went to police. Victor found out. He has people everywhere. Someone told him about your visit this morning. My blood ran cold. He called 2 hours ago. Said if I don't fix this, there will be consequences. For you, Karen? Is that a threat? A warning. Victor doesn't make idle threats. A property manager in Riverside who exposed the operation. House fire. A bookkeeper in Fairview who went to FBI. Car accident. Chaos erupted. Enough. Richard. Go to police. Tell them everything. I can't. Victor has leverage. Your family is already destroyed. You stole $400,000. Richard, help police catch Victor. Maybe they'll show leniency, Tom said quietly. Victor would kill me. That's what he does. Richard left. We stood processing everything. Do we believe him about Victor? Margaret searched on her phone. Fire in Riverside 8 months ago. Property manager, David Chun. Car accident in Fairview, Lisa Torres, HOA. Bookkeeper, could be coincidence. Or truth. Karen, tell Detective Martinez. No, I called. Martinez made calls while I waited. Victor Reese is real. Federal radar for 3 years. FBI investigating money laundering through HOAs across 5 states. So Richard told the truth. Partially, Reese exists and is dangerous. But that doesn't excuse Richard. What now? This becomes federal. FBI needs your evidence. Am I in danger? She hesitated. If Reese knows you're investigating, Possibly. We'll arrange protection. Patrol cars. Officers checking on you. Not very reassuring. Best I can offer. But Karen, you did the right thing. I told Mark everything. Curtains drawn. Doors locked. Maybe leave town. Stay with your sister in Oregon. I can't run. They'd win. This is about staying alive, not winning. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Mrs. Karen. Victor Reese. I believe you've been asking about me. Mark started recording. I have nothing to say. You've created a problem. Richard was useful. Now that relationship is compromised. He stole from my community. Victor laughed coldly. Trust. Quaint. Tell me, do you trust police can protect you? I trust justice. Here's something concrete. I know where you live. Your husband, Mark. Your 2018 Honda. Your daughter, Jennifer, studying architecture at Stanford. My blood froze. If you touch my family, fear does my work. Withdraw your complaint. Tell police you were mistaken. Richard disappears. Life returns to normal. No. Then you're a fool. Fools have unfortunate accidents. Line dead. Got it? Every word. We called Martinez. She arrived with 2 FBI agents. Special Agents Williams and Chun listened to the recording 3 times. Gold, direct threats. Criminal operation acknowledgement. You gave us probable cause. I care about family safety. We can offer protective custody. Safe house until we arrest Reese. How long? Days. Maybe a week. Reese is careful, but he made a huge mistake calling you. His arrogance will be his downfall. I looked at Mark. We're not hiding. Use me as bait. Silence. Absolutely not. Too risky. I'm already at risk. He threatened me, but if he thinks I'm scared, this is your chance. Williams and Chun exchanged glances. What exactly are you proposing? I keep normal routine. You watch. When Mubis. You grab him. Incredibly dangerous. Everything is dangerous. At least this way, we control it. They argued for an hour. Finally agreed to bring it to their supervisor. Seen 3 days later, FBI agreed with conditions. Wire, constant surveillance. Any danger, they move in. I continued life. Grocery store, neighborhood meeting. Walking my dog. Hyper-aware. Every moment. That car following. That person watching. 3rd day. Something happened. Leaving community center, I noticed a man in a black sedan starting at me. I walked to my car. He got out. Tall. Well-dressed. FBI agents tensing across the street. Mrs. Karen? Yes, Robert Morrison. I work with Victor Reese's legal team. Legal team? Mr. Reese wants to meet. Discussed resolution to this misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. He threatened my family. Mr. Reese denies threats. He wants to clear the air. Dinner tonight. Riverside Hotel. Suite 512. He handed me a card and left. FBI agents surrounded me. Set up. Private meeting. No witnesses. So we don't go. Actually, we do go. Not the way he expects. That evening, I walked into Riverside Hotel wearing hidden camera and microphone. FBI agents filled the building as guests, staff, security. I took the elevator to 5th floor. Hands steady. Mind clear. I knocked on suite 512. Door opened. Victor Reese stood there. Mid-50s, average height, expensive suit. Looked like a businessman, not a criminal. Karen, thank you for coming. Please, sit. I entered. Door closed behind me. You're braver than I expected. Most people run when I call. I'm not most people. Clearly, that's why I wanted to meet, to make you an offer. Listening, Richard made mistakes, but he's one piece in a larger game. I have 12 other HOAs, 15 property management companies, all running smoothly. You could join. You want me to help you steal? Help manage assets. You're intelligent, thorough, valuable skills. I could pay you $10,000 monthly. Just look the other way. If I refuse? Victor's smile disappeared. Eyes went cold, then I stopped being polite. He reached into his jacket. My heart stopped. Weapon. Is this where it ended? Instead of a gun, he pulled out a photograph. My daughter Jennifer. Walking across Stanford campus. Taken yesterday, beautiful girl. Would be a shame if anything happened. FBI burst through the door. Do you think the FBI has enough evidence? What will happen to Richard? Share your thoughts. FBI. Hands where we can see them. The door exploded inward. 6 agents flooded the suite. Weapons drawn. Victor froze. The photograph of my daughter still in his hand. Agent Williams moved first. Victor Reese, you are under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, and making terroristic threats. Victor's face remained calm. To come. He set down the photograph carefully, raised his hands slowly. This is a mistake, he said smoothly. I invited Mrs. Karen here for a friendly conversation. Nothing illegal about that. Agent Chun stepped forward. We have you on recording threatening her daughter, offering bribes, admitting to running a criminal enterprise across 12 HOS. For the first time, Victor's composure cracked. His eyes darted to me. You were wearing a wire? I stood up, my legs shaking but my voice steady. Every word you said. Every threat. All recorded. Victor's jaw clenched. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. Very clever, Karen. But you have no idea what you have just done. I have lawyers. Good. Lawyers. I will be out by morning. Agent Williams snapped handcuffs on his wrists. Maybe. But the federal charges keep piling up, and we are just getting started. They led him away. Mais Victor leaned close. This is not over, he whispered. I refused to flinch. I sat in a conference room, adrenaline still pumping through my veins. Agent Williams brought me coffee. You did great in there, he said. Most civilians would have panicked. You kept him talking long enough for us to get everything we needed. Is it enough to convict him? Agent Chun joined us, carrying a thick folder. More than enough. Between your recording from his phone call and tonight's wire, we have him on multiple federal charges. Each one carries 5 to 20 years. What about Richard? What happens to him? That depends on him, Williams said. If he cooperates, testifies against Reese, helps us identify the other compromised HOAs and property managers in the network, he might get a reduced sentence, maybe 5 to 7 years instead of 20. And if he doesn't cooperate, then he goes down with Reese. 20 years minimum. I thought about Rich. Despite everything he had done, despite the theft and lies, part of me felt sorry for him. He had made a terrible choice 5 years ago, and that choice had destroyed his life. Has anyone told him about Victor's arrest? Chun nodded. We picked him up an hour ago. He's in an interview room right now. Hasn't said a word yet. Just keeps asking for a lawyer. Can I talk to him? Both agents looked surprised. Why would you want to do that? Williams asked. Because I think he wants to do the right thing. He's just scared. Maybe if I talk to him, convince him that Victor can't hurt him anymore, he'll cooperate. Chun and Williams exchanged glances. It's unorthodox, Chun said, but if you think you can convince him, let me try. Richard looked up when I entered. His face was pale, eyes red from crying. He looked 10 years older than he had just days ago. Karen, he said hoarsely. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I sat across from him. I know you are. Victor, they arrested him. About 2 hours ago, I was wearing a wire. He threatened my daughter, offered me money to join his operation. The FBI has everything. Richard put his head in his hands. I told you it was dangerous. I told you Victor would come after you. You were right. He did. But he's in custody now. He can't hurt anyone anymore. You don't understand. Victor has people, associates, partners. Just because he's arrested doesn't mean the network stops. Someone will take over. Someone will not if you help the FBI dismantle it, I interrupted. Not if you give them everything. Names, account numbers, other compromised HOA. You can end this, Richard. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. If I testify against Victor Reese, he helped them, my family will never forgive me. My wife, my daughter, they'll know everything I've done. The stealing, the lies, everything. They're going to find out anyway. Victor's arrested. The investigation is public. The newspapers will have the story by tomorrow. Your family will know. The only question is whether you go to prison for 20 years or 7. Whether you destroy Victor's entire network or let it continue hurting other people. Richard was quiet for a long moment. 7 years, he whispered. That's what they offered. If you cooperate fully, if you help them catch everyone involved, I'd still lose everything. Yes, but you'd have a chance to make it right. To stop Victor from doing this to anyone else. That has to count for something. Richard wiped his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was stronger. Okay. Tell them I'll cooperate. I'll tell them everything I know. I stood up and knocked on the door. Agent Williams entered. He wants to talk, I said. Williams looked at Richard. You understand what you're agreeing to. Full cooperation. Complete testimony. No holding back. Richard nodded. I understand. I'm ready to tell you everything. I called a special meeting of the entire Maplewood Heights community. 230 families. The room was packed. People stood along the walls. The energy was tense, angry, scared. Everyone had seen the news. HOA Treasurer arrested. Federal money laundering investigation. Victor Reese, criminal mastermind. The story was everywhere. I stood at the front of the room. Thank you all for coming. I know you have questions. I know you're angry. I know you're worried about your money. I'm going to tell you everything I can. A man in the back shouted, How much did he steal from us? $387,000, over 5 years. The room erupted, angry voices. Accusations. Someone screamed that I should have caught it sooner. I raised my voice. You're right. I should have caught it sooner. I was HOA president. I trusted Richard. I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't demand enough documentation. That's on me. The room quieted slightly, but the moment I suspected something was wrong, I investigated. I gathered evidence. I went to the police, and now Richard Chun is facing federal charges. Victor Reese is in custody. The FBI has frozen all of Reese's known accounts and assets. They're working to recover as much money as possible. A woman near the front asked, Will we get our money back? The FBI says they've already recovered about $200,000 from various accounts linked to the operation. They're still tracing the rest. It might take months, maybe years, but they believe they can recover most of it. And what about our HOA fees in the meantime? Someone else called out, We still have expenses. Pool maintenance. Landscaping? Security. Tom stood up beside me. The board has been working on that. We've negotiated payment plans with all our vendors, we've cut unnecessary expenses, and we're implementing new financial controls to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. Linda added, Every transaction will now require 2 board members' signatures. We're hiring an independent auditor to review our books quarterly, and we're changing banks to one with better fraud detection. Margaret spoke up. We're also requiring all board members to undergo background checks and financial disclosure. No more secrets? I looked out at the faces of my neighbors. Some still looked angry. Some looked sad. But most looked relieved that we were taking action. I know. Trust is broken, I said. I know it will take time to rebuild. But I promise you, this board is committed to transparency, accountability, and making this community whole again. An older woman raised her hand. Karen, are you staying on as president? I had been asking myself that question for 2 weeks. That's up to all of you. If you want me to resign, I will. If you want to hold a special election, we can do that. But if you'll have me, I'd like to stay. I'd like to see this through, to make sure we recover from this and come back stronger. The room was quiet for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Then another. Within seconds, most of the room was applauding. I felt tears sting my eyes. I sat in the front row of the courtroom. Mark was beside me, holding my hand. Behind us sat Tom, Linda, Margaret, Steve, and dozens of other Maplewood Heights residents. Victor Reese sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit. His expensive suit was gone. His confident smile was gone. He looked small, defeated. Richard Chun sat at the prosecution table. He had testified for 3 days, given the FBI everything. Names, account numbers, shell companies, other compromised His testimony had led to 14 additional arrests across 5 states. The judge entered. We all stood. Please be seated, the judge said. "We are here for sentencing in the matter of United States versus Victor Reese. Mr. Reese, please rise." Victor stood. His lawyer stood beside him. "Mr. Reese, you have been found guilty of 19 counts of wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, and conspiracy. The prosecution has recommended a sentence of 25 years in federal prison. Do you have anything to say before I pass sentence?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. "No, Your Honor." The judge nodded. "Very well. I have reviewed all the evidence, all the victim impact statements, all the testimony. Mr. Reese, you ran a sophisticated criminal operation that defrauded dozens of communities and hundreds of families. You showed no remorse. You threatened witnesses. You attempted to intimidate victims. Therefore, I am sentencing you to 30 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for 25 years. The gavel came down. I felt Mark squeeze my hand. Around me, I heard people crying with relief. Victor was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look at anyone. The judge continued, "In the matter of Richard Chun, who pleaded guilty and cooperated fully with authorities, I sentence you to 7 years in federal prison, with possibility of parole after 5 years. Mr. Chun, I hope you use this time to reflect on your choices and the harm you caused." Richard stood. "I will, Your Honor. And I want to say to the people of Maplewood Heights, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." He looked back at us. Our eyes met briefly. I saw a genuine remorse there. I nodded. Just once, a small acknowledgement that his apology was heard. The annual HOA meeting. My last one. As president, I had decided not to run for re-election. It was time for someone else to lead. I stood at the podium. "This has been the most challenging year of my life. We lost nearly $400,000 to fraud. We had to implement emergency assessments. We had to delay improvements. We had to rebuild trust from the ground up. But we did it. The FBI recovered $280,000. Our insurance covered another $50,000. We negotiated settlements with several of the shell companies. In total, we recovered about 90% of what was stolen." Applause filled the room. More importantly, we implemented new safeguards, new controls, new transparency measures. This will never happen again, not on our watch. Tom stood. "I want to say something. Karen, you could have walked away. After you discovered the fraud, you could have resigned. Let someone else deal with it. But you didn't. You fought. You investigated. You risked your safety to catch these criminals. On behalf of the entire community, thank you." Everyone stood. The ovation lasted several minutes. I felt tears running down my face. "Thank you," I managed. "All of you. For trusting me, for supporting this investigation, for standing together. That's what makes this community special. Not our pool or our landscaping or our property values. It's the people. It's all of you." Mark and I sat on our porch, watching the sunset over Maplewood Heights. "You did it," he said quietly. "You actually did it. We did it. I couldn't have done this without you, without Tom and Linda and Margaret and Steve, without everyone in this community. What's next for you, now that you're not HOA president anymore?" I smiled. "I don't know. Maybe I'll take up a hobby. Something relaxing, something that doesn't involve investigating financial fraud." Mark laughed. "Good luck with that. You know, you're going to get bored within a week." He was probably right. My phone buzzed. A news alert. I opened it. Breaking news. Federal investigation expands. Authorities arrest 3 more individuals connected to Victor Reese money laundering network. The investigation was still ongoing. More arrests, more recovered money, more justice. I showed Mark the article. "It's really over," I said. "Victor's network is completely dismantled. Because of you. Because I noticed something was wrong and didn't look away." That was the lesson, really. Not to be suspicious of everyone, not to assume the worst. But to pay attention, to ask questions, to demand accountability, to trust, but verify. "You know what the best part is?" Mark asked. "What?" "Jennifer called today. She said she's proud of you, said you inspired her to change her major." I looked at him. Change her major? From architecture to what? Criminal justice. She wants to work for the FBI. I laughed. Of course she did. Like mother, like daughter, Mark said. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the neighborhood we had fought so hard to protect. Lights were coming on in houses. Families were gathering for dinner. Kids were playing in yards. Life was returning to normal, but I would never look at normal the same way again. Because normal can hide terrible things. And sometimes it takes just one person asking why to expose the truth. I was glad I asked. Victor Reese is currently serving 30 years in federal prison. Richard Chun is serving 7 years. He is eligible for parole in 3 more years. The FBI recovered approximately $3.2 million from Victor Reese network, benefiting 17 different communities across 5 states. Maplewood Heights. HOA implemented comprehensive financial oversight reforms that have since been adopted by over 50 other HOAs nationwide. Karen stepped down as HOA president, but remains active in community leadership and frequently speaks about HOA fraud, prevention, and most importantly, the playground equipment that Richard theft delayed. It was finally installed. The kids love it. Have you ever suspected fraud in your HOA or community? What did you do? Share your story. 1 year after Victor Reese went to prison, I stood in front of the new playground at Maplewood Heights. Children laughed and screamed with joy as they tested every slide, swing, and climbing structure. This playground represented more than just equipment. It represented justice, recovery, community. It represented everything we had fought for. Beautiful, isn't it? Tom said, joining me. I smiled. It really is. I never thought we would get here. But we did. Because of you. I shook my head. Because of all of us. Every board member who stayed. Every resident who trusted us to fix this. Every person who didn't give up. It was my final board meeting as president. I had announced months ago that I would not seek re-election. After everything that had happened, I needed to step back. Let someone else lead. The conference room felt different now. New security cameras. New audit procedures. New transparency requirements. Everything had changed. Linda called the meeting to order. Before we begin regular business, I want to recognize Karen. This is her last meeting as president after 6 incredible years of service. Everyone applauded. I raised my hand. Thank you. But before we move on, I need to say something. This past year has taught me lessons I will never forget. About trust. About vigilance. About the responsibility we have to each other. I looked at each board member. When I discovered Richard's theft, I could have looked away. I could have convinced myself it was a mistake. I could have avoided the confrontation, the investigation, the danger, but I didn't. Because this community deserved better. Tom nodded, and we are all grateful you didn't look away. But here is what I want you all to remember. I am not special. I am not a hero. I am just someone who paid attention, who asked questions, who refused to accept easy answers. Margaret leaned forward. That's exactly what made the difference. Karen, most people would have accepted Richard's explanations, trusted his reports. Never dug deeper. Exactly. And that is the lesson for whoever takes over as president. Trust your instincts. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Demand documentation. Never assume that because someone has been in a position for years, they are beyond scrutiny. Steve spoke up. We have implemented so many new controls. 2 signature requirements. Quarterly audits. Background checks. Do you think it is enough? Nothing is ever 100% foolproof. But yes, I think we have made it significantly harder for anyone to do what Richard did. The real question is whether future boards will maintain these standards or let them slip. Silence fell over the room. That's why I'm stepping down, I continued. New leadership needs to take ownership of these reforms, make them their own. Not just follow rules I created, but truly believe in the principles behind them. Linda smiled. Well, I have news. The election results came in today. Tom, you are our new president. Everyone applauded again. Tom looked genuinely surprised. I don't know what to say. I stood and shook his hand. Say, you will protect this community. Say you will ask the hard questions. Say you will never let fear or politeness stop you from doing what is right. Tom gripped my hand firmly. I promise all of that and more. Mark and I sat in our living room. My phone rang, unknown number. I hesitated. After everything with Victor, unknown numbers still made me nervous. Mark saw my face. Want me to answer? No, I will. I answered, "Hello, Senora Karen. This is Agent Williams from the FBI." My heart jumped. Agent Williams. Is everything okay? More than okay. I wanted to give you an update. We just arrested the last member of Victor Reese's network, a financial advisor in Nevada who had been helping launder money through offshore accounts. I sat down. That's wonderful news. It gets better. We recovered another $400,000 from accounts linked to this advisor. Combined with previous recoveries, we have now retrieved approximately $4.1 million from the entire operation. $4.1 million across 17 HOAs and property management companies that were victimized. Your community's share, based on what was stolen, comes to about $350,000. Tears welled in my eyes. We had lost $387,000. We were getting back $350,000. That is almost everything. Almost everything. And Karen, none of this would have been possible without you. Your investigation, your courage, your willingness to wear a wire and confront Victor. You did not just save your community, you saved 16 others. After I hung up, Mark pulled me into a hug. You heard? He nodded. I am so proud of you. I am proud of us. You supported me through all of this. The fear, the danger, stress. I could not have done it without you. We sat holding each other, letting the relief wash over us. I called one final community meeting. Not as president, just as a neighbor with news to share. The community center was packed again, but the energy was different from a year ago. Less anger, less fear, more hope. I stood at the podium. Thank you all for coming. I know many of you are wondering why I called this meeting. I have news from the FBI. The room went silent. The federal investigation into Victor Reese's money laundering network is complete. The last member of his organization was arrested last week, and as a result, the FBI has recovered almost all of the money stolen from our community. Gasps, murmurs, then applause. I raised my hand for quiet. We are getting back $350,000 of the $387,000 that was stolen. That is 90%. The applause grew louder. This money will be returned to our HOA account over the next 60 days. The board will hold a special meeting to decide how to allocate these recovered funds, whether to reduce next year's fees, fund deferred maintenance, or build up our reserve fund. A man raised his hand. What about the $37,000 we didn't recover? That money is gone, lost in the complexity of offshore accounts and shell companies. But our insurance has already covered $25,000 of that loss, so ultimately we are only out about $12,000. Another woman stood. Karen, I need to say something. A year ago, I was angry at you. I thought you should have caught Richard's theft sooner. But now I understand. What you did was remarkable. You saved our community. Others nodded and voiced agreement. Thank you. But I want to be clear about something. Yes, I discovered the fraud. Yes, I investigated. But I also failed to catch it for 5 years. I trusted Richard when I should have verified. I accepted his reports without demanding proof. I paused. That is my biggest regret. Not that I caught him eventually, but that I didn't catch him sooner. If I had been more diligent, more skeptical, we could have stopped this after he stole $50,000 instead of $387,000. Tom stood. Karen, you cannot blame yourself. Richard was sophisticated. Victor Reese was professional. They designed this fraud to be invisible. Maybe, but the lesson stands for every board member, every treasurer, every person in a position of financial responsibility. Verify everything. Trust is important, but verification is essential. The room was quiet, absorbing the message. I smiled, but tonight is not about regret. It is about recovery. It is about justice. It is about coming together as a community and proving that we are stronger than any criminal who tries to hurt us. Everyone stood and applauded. I met with Linda for coffee, our first meeting since I stepped down as president. How does it feel? She asked. Being a regular board member again. I laughed. Liberating, actually. Tom is doing a great job. The pressure is off my shoulders. You deserve a break. What will you do with all your free time? Actually, I have been getting calls. Calls from other community organizations. They want me to speak about fraud prevention, share what I learned, help them implement better financial controls. Linda's eyes widened. That is amazing. Are you going to do it? I am thinking about it. If my experience can help other communities avoid what we went through, maybe all of this meant something. It already meant something. You brought a criminal network to justice. True. But I wanted to mean more than that. I wanted to create lasting change. Linda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You will make sure of it. I did something I never thought I would do. I visited Richard Chun in prison. The federal facility was cold, institutional. Guards led me through multiple security checkpoints before bringing me to a visiting room. Richard looked different. Thinner. Grayer. Older. Prison was aging him rapidly. He sat across from me, separated by a thick glass partition. Karen, I didn't expect you to come. I didn't expect to come either, but I needed to see you. Why? Because I have questions. Things I need to understand. Richard nodded slowly. Ask. When did you know you were in too deep? When did you realize you couldn't get out? Richard closed his eyes. About 6 months in, I had taken that initial $5,000. Then Victor contacted me. At first, it seemed manageable. Small amounts, easy to hide. But then Victor kept pushing. More money. Bigger risks. By the time I wanted to stop, I was already guilty of so much that confession seemed impossible. You could have come to me. To the board, we could have helped. I know that now, but at the time, I was terrified. Of prison. Of shame. Of losing my family. So I kept lying, kept stealing, kept hoping somehow I could fix it before anyone found out. Your family, have they visited? Richard's expression crumpled. My wife came once. 3 months ago. She said she couldn't do it anymore. She filed for divorce. My daughter won't take my calls. Despite everything he had done, I felt a pang of sympathy. I am sorry. Don't be. I deserve this. I destroyed their lives, along with my own. Richard, I came here to tell you something. The FBI recovered most of the money. Our community is getting $350,000 back. Richard's eyes widened. $350. That's almost everything. Yes, your cooperation helped make that possible. Your testimony led to 14 more arrests. Millions of dollars recovered across 17 communities. Tears streamed down Richard's face. It doesn't change what I did. Doesn't undo the harm. No. But it matters. You chose to help in the end. You chose to do the right thing, even when it was too late to save yourself. Why are you telling me this? Why show me kindness? I thought carefully before answering, because I believe people are more than the worst thing they have ever done. You made terrible choices. You hurt people. You deserve your punishment, but you also helped bring down a criminal network. You also prevented future victims. That matters too. Richard wiped his eyes. Thank you, Karen. For everything. For catching me. For forcing me to face what I had done. I know that sounds strange, but being caught was almost a relief. I understand. We sat in silence for a moment. What will you do when you get out? I asked. If I get out. Parole isn't guaranteed, but if I do, I don't know. Try to rebuild something. Maybe help others avoid the mistakes I made. Use my experience as a warning. That would be good. That would be meaningful. As I left the prison, I felt an unexpected emotion. Closure. I stood in front of 200 HOA board members from across the state. My first speaking engagement about fraud prevention. Nervous energy buzzed through me, but as I looked out at the faces, I saw my own past reflected there. Good people trying to do right by their communities, people who trusted, people who might miss the warning signs. Good morning. My name is Karen, and I am here to tell you how my HOA treasurer stole $387,000 right under my nose. The room went completely silent. For 5 years, Richard Chun presented clean financial reports at every board meeting. For 5 years, I accepted those reports without question. For 5 years, I trusted him completely. I clicked to my first slide. Here is what I should have done differently. First, I should have demanded access to actual bank statements, not just summaries. Second, I should have verified vendor invoices independently. Third, I should have noticed that expenses were too perfect, too consistent, too predictable. I spent the next 45 minutes walking through every mistake I made, every warning sign I missed, every lesson I learned. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. A woman raised her hand. What was the moment you knew something was wrong? I saw mail from an offshore bank in his car. It was pure accident. But it made me look closer at everything else. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, investigate. Another person asked, how do we balance trust with verification? We don't want to accuse good people. You do not accuse. You verify. There is nothing accusatory about asking for bank statements or requesting vendor documentation. These should be standard procedures, not extraordinary requests. Make verification routine, and nobody feels singled out. A man in the back spoke up. What happened to the criminal ESA in Prison? Victor Reese is serving 30 years in federal prison. Richard Chun is serving 7 years. The FBI dismantled the entire money laundering network. 17 communities recovered their stolen funds. Justice was served. Moria Plaza. As I left the venue, an older gentleman approached me. Thank you. My HOA has a treasurer who has been in position for 12 years. I have never questioned his reports. But after hearing you speak, I realize I need to verify everything. I smiled. That is exactly why I am doing this. If even one community avoids what we went through, all of this was worth it. Life returned to normal. Or, rather, a new normal. I walked through the neighborhood. On a Saturday morning, children played on the new playground. Families tended their gardens. Neighbors chatted over fences. Everything looked peaceful, ordinary, safe. But I knew better now. I knew that beneath the surface of any community, threats could lurk. That trust needed to be balanced with vigilance. That asking questions was not paranoia, but responsibility. Tom jogged up beside me. Karen, I wanted to catch you. The recovered funds came through yesterday. We are scheduling a community vote on how to allocate them. That is wonderful. What are the options? Reduce next year's fees by 30%. Fund the pool renovation we have been delaying. Or split it 50-50 between fee reduction and reserve fund. My vote would be reserve fund. Build up a cushion so we are never vulnerable like this again. Tom nodded. Agree. Financial security first. He hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever regret how far you pushed, confronting Richard, wearing a wire, putting yourself in danger with Victor? I thought about it. No. I regret not catching it sooner, but confronting it once I knew that was the only choice. Doing nothing would have betrayed every person in this community. You are remarkable. You know that. I laughed. I am just someone who paid attention. Anyone could have done what I did. But most people wouldn't. That is what makes the difference. Mark and I sat on our porch, watching another sunset over Maplewood Heights. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Mom, I got accepted to the FBI Academy, starting next month. Thank you for inspiring me. I showed Mark. He smiled. Your daughter, the FBI agent. Never saw that coming. Neither did I, but I am proud of her. She is proud of you, too. We all are. I leaned against Mark's shoulder, feeling content for the first time in what felt like years. You know what the best part of all this is? I asked. What? We won, not just against Richard and Victor. We won against fear, against corruption, against the idea that ordinary people cannot make a difference. Mark kissed the top of my head. You made the difference. You and that stubborn refusal to look away. Someone had to. And you did. Now other communities will benefit from what you learned. Other criminals will think twice. Other victims will find justice. I watched the sun set over our neighborhood, over the community we had saved, over the playground that finally stood as a monument to persistence and justice. Tease was home. This was worth fighting for. And I would do it all again in a heartbeat. What did you learn from Karen's story? Would you have the courage to investigate fraud in your community? Share your thoughts below.